Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. We're taking a look at some breakout candidates, specifically on the offensive side of the football. We're not worried about defense. That's going to come later. We're looking at the offensive guys that could take a step forward. What that step means could mean some different things, by the way. Now, if you want defensive breakout candidates, then simply share today's video. Not everyone cares about this, if we're being honest. It is, July, after all. So if you want defensive breakout candidates, share today's show on social media. All right, first up is Rico Dowdle, who is in both a make-or-break season, is not guaranteed a roster spot with the way his deal is constructed, and could also be the number one back for the Cowboys in the 2024 campaign because the running back room's in a really weird spot. Dowdle played sparingly last season. Some good, some bad, some really good, I thought, at times. Has had injury issues over the course of his NFL career, which has limited him more frequently than what I would like. I thought he should have played a little bit more this past year. And I think that of the guys on the roster, I think this version in 2024, Dowdle's the most talented, at least the best running back option. His main competition comes from Ezekiel Elliott. The problem here is that it's not, 2017, 2018 Zeke anymore. He's not the same guy. His efficiency has dropped, as his workload has also dropped. That's normally not what you're looking for. Now, Elliott, I bet, will lead this team in touchdowns. I think he'll be the goal line back or in short yardage back. But I need more than just, hey, I need 2 yards, Zeke will get me 3. When it's 1st and 10 and I try to run the ball, I can't have Zeke get me 3. I need to have someone get me 4 or 5 and bust some big runs. That's not who Zeke is anymore. So I hope it's Rico Dowdle. I also wonder if that player really exists right now on this Cowboys roster at the running back spot. It's not a great room if we're being objective and honest. So will Rico Dowdle lead the Cowboys in rushing? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me at the pinned comment of today's video. Honest answers. Will he be the team's number one back? Y or M? I'm going to cheat. One of 2 spots I'm cheating, by the way, on today's show. And I'm going to group Deuce Vaughn and Hunter Luepke together. This is the second-year running back and the second-year fullback who, to be fair, they aren't just running backs with the way they're going to get utilized this year. They're not just hand the ball off guys. Deuce Vaughn, might be your backup kick returner. Alongside KaVontae Turpin, we'll see on that front. Also getting some slot receiver work to figure out how to maximize him. Luepke, meanwhile, spent the majority of his first year at fullback. He wasn't really a full-time running back. And Deuce Vaughn was not given great opportunities to make plays. He had a handful of touches, including return opportunities, when he wasn't out there in garbage time. Like, his numbers looked terrible, and they were terrible. The majority of those reps came when the game was over. And I don't think anyone really thinks Deuce Vaughn makes sense as a grind out the clock back. That's not who he is. He's a small back, right? Luepke might make more sense as a ground out the clock back. My concern for Vaughn is, does he even make the roster? And Luepke, if he makes as a fullback, great. But as a running back, doesn't Zeke kind of take that role? That fumble against the Dolphins is not one that is reflected upon very fondly. Now, we will have more Cowboys coverage for you right here on the Cowboys Report. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV for more free Cowboys videos. Now, we mentioned the running backs, talking about bigger role and becoming a starter, a full-time guy. Well, next name here is Jake Ferguson. He's already a starter. I think that Jake Ferguson can push into being viewed as a potential top 5 tight end in the NFL. He was damn good last year. He took a massive step forward, had a bit of a breakout season. I do think there is the possibility of another step forward for Fergie. One of the most statistically productive plays for the Cowboys is that seam shot. And Ferguson feasted on that. So did CeeDee Lamb, by the way. Here are the numbers relative to other tight ends in the NFL. Jake Ferguson was 7th in targets despite only being 11th in target share, meaning that he got a lot of targets in a pass-happy offense, but didn't get a massive workload compared to guys like, Eminem had a huge target share, Laporta, etc. 9th in catches, 8th in yards, only 15th in yards per route run, but was 5th in yards after the catch. It's not a check down offense, or it's not a check down game where Ferguson catches the ball and breaks no tackles like, Zach Ertz did. 7th in EPA, total EPA. He's not that far from being a top 5 tight end. No, he's probably not going to be better than the George Kittles, Laporta, Travis Kelce. He can be in that next best bunch, though. So right now, where do you rank Jake Ferguson among NFL tight ends? He's a clear top 10 for me, but overall, where does he rank for you? Sound off in the comments. Told you we cheat twice here. The Jalens at wide receiver, that is both Jalen Tolbert and Jalen Brooks. I think your top 2 contenders to be wide receiver 3 for this organization. Tolbert was better last year, more productive, still a lot of room to grow. Now, he's done inside and outside stuff for the Cowboys so far in camp, etc., or minicamp and OTAs. I thought he was at times outplaying Michael Gallup. I don't need either of these guys to be, 600, 700 prime Michael Gallup-esque production. I just need them to be steady. And maybe that's where Brooks steps up. He's got good hands. He'll make the tough contested catch over the middle. That's always tough for some receivers. He's a bit stronger than Tolbert is. Also only caught 6 passes last season. The wide receiver room has room for another breakout player. Teaser, we will talk about KaVontae Turpin here in a little bit. Other guys, David Durden, Jalen Cropper, if they make the roster, awesome. We might be pushing a little bit too much from that perspective. I don't put first-year players on these lists because there's nothing to break out from. They're just rookies. They're not like, it's not really a breakout candidate as far as I'm concerned. So of the 2 receivers, pick a breakout. T for Jalen Tolbert, B for Jalen Brooks. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. I did promise KaVontae Turpin. And I guess maybe this is cheating number 2.5, because I do think there's not just offensive angles here for Turpin. But on the offensive side of things first, the Cowboys did use him more last season. He also wasn't used a lot. Now, he had a pretty high target or touch to snap ratio, but he's small. Like KaVontae Turpin, I think sometimes we underestimate really how small he is. He is not a big football player. I don't think the Cowboys view him as an every down receiver, or so not as an every down running back. He's so much smaller than even like small guys like Isaiah Pacheco's not the biggest guy, but he's bigger. Like Deuce Vaughn is incredibly small. He weighs more than KaVontae Turpin does, right? And I think, by the way, I think Turpin and Vaughn, this organization, I think they view them as kind of similar players. But listed size, obviously, Deuce Vaughn's almost 25 pounds heavier than Turpin is. It's kind of crazy, right? So Turpin is a gadget guy on offense. But I'll put him on here in part because I think he can have a much bigger uptick in return production than the drop-off we saw last year. Teams tried to kick it away from him. They were aware of how good he was. That's going to kind of change on kick returns, or at least impact the way that they're able to set things up. With the new kick return rules, I think there is the opportunity for Turpin to have a bigger impact on that side, or at least that phase of the ball. So name a player who you think breaks out on offense. Maybe it's someone I haven't mentioned. That's even better, actually. Sound off for me in the comments of today's show. Finally, and this one is probably a stretch, but I'm going to put Brock Hoffman on here, because I think there's a non-zero chance, and maybe it's like a 45% chance, if not higher, that week 1, Brock Hoffman's your starting center. This coaching staff, this offensive line coach, he loves him. Loves him. Like they think he's really, really good. 0 sacks, 0 hits, 5 hurries allowed, 54.3 run block rate. They love him. Probably more than they should love him, by the way. But remember to start OTAs, to start minicamp. Brock Hoffman was out there at center. So too was Chuma Edoga. Maybe that changes, and I hope it does change, by the way, as we get through to training camp. But I would not sleep on Brock Hoffman becoming an early starter, or at least being the number one interior offensive line backup for this team, maybe even over TJ Bass. So I want BB to start, but I do want to remind everyone that there's a chance that it ends up being Brock Hoffman. If you guys made it to the end of this particular video, then like it if you haven't already. Clearly you like the content. You made it all the way through. Not everybody does. So like the video if you made it to the end of today's show.